Ooh. All right, cool. And we're live. So this is going to be a little more less structure. This video, just because it's the first time I've actually done anything like this before with other people, or even recording it as a video. Looks like I actually had the time wrong for this event. I should probably edit that. But yeah, I just created a little event here just to talk about. Yeah, that's for those purposes. Yeah, I just want to talk about the inflection model for um, Rails. I originally so the last week we did a video for um, the well-grounded Rubyist. Started those videos, and if you wanted to look in the back, I'm actually starting a playlist on the YouTube account. So if you guys are interested in watching that video, it's definitely available. I think if you even searched it, it might be pretty sure it might be the only video on well-grounded Rubyist. I don't think anybody else is recording book clubs, but yeah, you'll be able to find it. So just searching well, looks like I wrote that wrong. It's actually grounded, but you see it right there. You're able to search it. Um, so yeah, I'm just walking through chapter by chapter, talking about the book and kind of helping myself, I guess. If I don't know if you've kind of caught on yet, Horvath, but basically the Ruby Newbies is kind of myself. A way of encouraging myself to continue on learning, but also recording it for other people. So my goal is to think of new things to learn to help myself, because I think eventually I might not be a Ruby newbie, but I think I might be a Ruby newbie for a few years because there's just so many things in Ruby I am not going to know until I actually expose myself to them. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the book club. Why I went through the Odin project and recorded all the videos, which are also available for anybody to see. We've got all the playlists here. So we have all the Odin project sessions that we did are all available. Just trying to make that easier for people who start Ruby to have something to watch. Because I know when I first started, it was there was a lot of stuff that you could do, but you don't know. I just don't know where to start as far as getting into Ruby or server-side programming. And front-end design and programming is a whole another thing too that I'm going to get to eventually. But for now, we're just talking about Ruby. And I came up with the idea of on the off weeks, because it would be a lot of chapters to read each week, to do 4 chapters a week. So, and I want to have that goal of 4 chapters, but do it every other week to have enough time to read them and understand them and do a presentation on them. So on the off weeks, I had the idea of looking through libraries, because we had talked about going through what was the thing, modules, and basically the libraries within Ruby, and particularly this one's actually going to be Rails. They are specifically, they're basically modules the way they work. So a lot of times you'll have to include that module into your application, and then you'll be able to use some of that code base. So without dancing around too much, I just kind of wanted to just kind of give that beginning. And if I can get to that slide, there we go. So I think it was, yeah. So I talked about modules, and all the slides are available. If you just want to present boldly, you could find them and go into more details. Also, I highly recommend getting the book if you aren't following along with us. But just talking about how to include the modules on your project, just using the include keyword. And that's how you can activate a lot of the modules within your core structure of your application. But for this one specifically, I wasn't aware it's actually a Rails. I kind of avoided Rails. I didn't want to get too in that corner of just using Rails as far as a learning tool, because there's a lot of stuff that Rails does for you that you might not know. There's a lot of magic that happens in the background. It's all real magic, but once you get down the deep down, what happens, it makes it's understandable. But I kind of wanted to focus more on Ruby. But since I threw this out there as part of the reading, I've kind of named this actual particular video reading Rails because this is actually a Rails model. So it's actually a small library with not too many things going on in it, but it's a library that actually came up within the first few weeks of me starting the job that I have today. So I just wanted to kind of go in the console of Rails. I know in the past we've actually only used IRB with the Odin project and stuff like that, since we haven't been using Rails specifically. But just wanted to share that. Now, just want to make sure. Can you see my screen, my lettering?
Yes.
All right, perfect. I had switched. I went from the black background with the green lettering to this at work because I actually have a window right in front of my computer. So I tried to get a brighter background so I wouldn't have a problem reading anymore. I highly I recommend not putting your computer in front of a window. It's horrible, but where I sit, it's the only place I have it. I guess I could move if I wanted to, but I like being in front of the window and looking out when I'm stumped. But try to get rid of that opaque. There we go. That way you guys don't have to see the back of my son's head. Yeah, so normally we'd go into the IRB. Most people already know this, but for Rails, you would actually just type in Rails console, or like I did with Rails C. Now I'm trying, 4.0, cool. So if I just typed out console, it's the same thing. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, you're inside the console right now. So
oh, I am. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, this showing that the console is the same thing. You can't open a console inside the console, obviously.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yep, so now I'm in the console, so I mean if I wanted to do just like an IRB, just that. Just kind of going through that because we haven't really done anything Rails. So if anybody's this is the only tool you're using to learn Ruby is through my videos, I just wanted to share that. So basically all I want to do is we'll just read through the actual the library and we'll just test out some stuff in the console and see how that works. Yeah, and that's about it. And we could have, if you have any questions about how anything works. I didn't actually study up on this a lot. This is the actual library. This library is the only version of information I have on this subject. I'm not sure if anybody's actually blogged about the Rails Inflector. It's possible that someone has. Oh yeah, looks like we got one blog post on it. So, and looks like someone's talking about Rails inflections. I'm not sure who this guy is, but yeah, this would be. Yeah, it looks like he actually looks like he goes pretty deep in it. I'm not sure if he contributes to Rails or how he know all this information about Rails, but I've actually never heard of this guy before. But we'll just read it and see what we can get out of it. This method of reading documentation I'm kind of taking from Saran, who's she's on the Ruby Rogues podcast on a regular basis. And one thing that I think was James Earl Gray might have mentioned at the end of one episode is that his tip is he had spent basically his spare time reading the Ruby libraries and not quite understanding everything, but his idea was if you read through the actual documentation of Rails or Ruby, you might not get it at first, but there'll be a time where you might need to recall that information, and just because you read through it, you might be able to find it a lot easier. So certain things like humanize and constantize are stuff or tablize is even used quite a bit within Rails and using that functionality. So I've never actually used it before until I got to this job. So that's just the method I'm trying to use. So we'll just go ahead and start. So within this library, there's a method called camelize, and it looks like it takes in 2 arguments, uppercase for less true, and so just looking at the functionality. So if you had active model, which I imagine could be a method or I guess it could be a variable, and you wanted to camelize it, it would switch it to camel case, which is pretty cool. Camelize lower. Oh, that's even cooler. So looks like if you wanted to, so let's just go ahead and find a class, which I think I have a church class in my app. Yep. So if I want to make a variable of, actually, let me see in my application if I've had any models that have two names that are using camel case or snake case. And you know what? I don't. I don't have a case. So what if I wanted to make a new class that inherits from church? That's going to be called Florida Church. I think this will work. Cool. So let's see if I have, now I have a camel. Oh, you know what? I'm doing this backwards. I have a camel case. I actually wanted to actually have a snake case, right? Because they're converting snake case to camel case. And the snake case is just it's guided by a snake. Camel case it's got humps. So in Ruby you can use either or as far as using objects. So I actually want to just need a variable that actually is snake case to see how it works. And oops, I don't have anything called. Oh, you know what? Actually, I know what I can do. I think I have a church at last. So I'll just name that. I don't need to actually use my new class. All right, finally. I have a Florida church, and I want to switch it to camelize. And some of the stuff is like super simple. Like if I wanted to undefine active meta, do I need to include inflectors? Inflector, transform, single word, and modelize. I was under the impression, oh, like Rails 4.1, I wanted. I was under the impression that maybe this actually came out of the box with Rails, but maybe do I need to do include inflections? Maybe include inflectors. That's not it. Huh. What's the opposite of camelize? If I want to switch from camel to let's see if this works. Yeah, that does work. I guess I'm not sure why I can't switch my Florida church. Yeah, so I don't need to actually do include inflectors or inflections because inflectors and inflections, it comes with Rails. It's part of the Rails standard library, at least with Rails 4. I don't know if it's included before then, but yeah, it's a module of active support, which actually comes out of the box of Rails. Is that correct? Maybe I'm just assuming. But yeah, it comes, I'm not sure where it's actually nested. Here you go. Inflections.rb is in active support. Rails defines inflections directly in active support. Yeah, so there's no reason to actually include it like I was explaining with the include because it actually comes in with Rails. So maybe my Florida church. needs to. Oh, there we go. So it looks
Hmm.
like it needs to take in a string. Well, looks like that's news for me. So actually, let's go back to the documentation because maybe I didn't read it clearly enough to figure out how it works. And yep, you can
Yes.
see it's obviously a string. So
Yes.
by default, it converts strings to uppercase. So
And as I can see, all of the methods takes strings.
yeah, they're all strings.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty strange for me.
yeah, so it looks like you have to convert. So if you wanted to return, and then like I guess the most common case of this would be if not, I don't know any common cases actually, but I've seen it in practice in my work project, which I can't. I did some examples that I could show, but I actually prefer not to show any of the code for my work project because we're a publicly traded company, and I don't want to do anything that we're actually not supposed to do via the web. But I know with some certain things, there was a method where I had to grab the. Actually, if you don't mind, actually I'll pull up my project. I just won't show it on the screen so I can make sure I know what I'm talking about. But shut that in Sublime. Just pull it off screen. And ooh, actually, that's not the right folder anyway. But there was a method where I needed to actually grab the. So we have these things called opportunities, and it's a model. And I needed to get the underscore of the model, which I didn't quite understand what I was doing, but it was recommended me to use the underscore. Okay, I see what underscore is now. Underscore is basically the opposite of camel case. So if I wanted
Hmm.
to um, just so obviously that's fortechurch.camelize. I can actually throw that into a method, or I mean a variable. And if I did underscore, okay, yeah. So actually, I needed to, it was like a Twitter opportunity. And within the code, what I remember, I needed to pass in the type to another method, but the method took basically I think the yeah, I think the way it was called like a method was called like the same name. So I actually had to type underscore to it. So that way when I passed in that variable, so if I wanted to take in that variable, that way I could do something like this. So if I knew it was going to be an opportunity, but I didn't know what it was going to be, I could pass in like um, it was like an object. Say it was object, but I needed the name of the object. But the object dot name didn't come into the it didn't it came like as a string but with spaces. There should be something where I was able to take that regular string and convert it. I thought it was underscore. Oh, that's what it was. It was the type, and the type comes in basically the way it was written. The type actually came in as I spelled object wrong, as a Twitter opportunity. And on the fly, as we pulled in information with the string interpolation, um, we needed the object name to come in, but we actually had to convert it to an underscore. So why do I keep spelling that wrong? So there's certain things that you need to, like if you needed to do stuff on the fly instead of put stuff like that out of into other methods or um, with Rails, a lot of stuff is repeated within models and methods. Models and methods might have the same name. This kind of gives you an opportunity to change stuff within the code. Um, go back to the examples. So we looked at camelize. We know underscore is the opposite of camelize. Classify. Oh. Create a class name, plural, table. Yeah. Yeah, so like here is my project file. Oh, here we go. So there's certain things I will see in my migration table. And I guess I got a lot of bad examples because all my table names are one word. Oh, I guess church ID would be a good one. It's two words. It's a column. Yeah, all my tables are one name, but you're able to, should be one that you can actually convert symbols, possibly.
Do you mean that it's a bad practice, or just for the example it is bad that you have only one words tables?
No, it's not a bad practice. It's just for the show camel case. Obviously, if I tried to convert a one active in the camel case, you wouldn't really see anything other than the first letter get capitalized. So ideally, if you did active.camelize, it's kind of hard to show you that it made a change
I get it.
because you could technically just go upcase. Now, I mean, the other one, upper, not upcase. What's the one where you could capitalize? That's what it is.
Uppercase, isn't it?
Capitalize. Yeah. So what's
line?
Yeah. So obviously these return both the same thing, but ideally, so like if you didn't know about camelize, maybe you would go, okay, let me just capitalize the first word. So every time I have a certain object that I want that comes in, so working with bigger projects and tables, there's a possibility that maybe you need to capitalize every single project, but you wanted to capitalize every main word. This gives you an opportunity to camelize. So it's going to take the first main word from each section and camelize each main word. So like when I was in Florida Church, Florida and church will be capitalized but also sandwiched together. So once you start getting into more methods and stuff like that, like this is something that I wouldn't necessarily use. I'm obviously not going to be using it in my own personal project because my project's a lot smaller. But in a year's time, seeing how I'll probably be the only one working on this project, and maybe in a year's time, I might get to the point where it's starting to get a bigger code base, and I need to start doing more things like this, like using the word classify, create a class from a plural name. Oh, see that stuff like that would be very useful if you needed to convert stuff on the fly from plural to singular and capitalize. Because in certain cases, a lot of I don't know if you know this, but if you how much Rails experience you have, Horvath, but Rails does a lot of work for you. So if I were to exit out of this, I've been Rails G controller, and I want a controller called church parking lot. The controller's not going to do anything like that for me. Well, let's see. It does a lot of work for you, so it actually going to create me a view, and it's going to create me a helper. Yes. But if I wanted to do like grocery parking lot, and this is me just testing it on the fly. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to do this for me. But oh, that's weird. It creates a CoffeeScript file for me. I didn't realize I had CoffeeScript out of the box because I've never used it. But let's go into the project. So I created some stuff on the fly using some the Rails models. So it looks like church. No, that's church parking lots. Did I make that plural? Yeah, I did make it plural.
Yeah, you did.
The,
You did, but you didn't make in the grocery parking lot, so I
no,
should check that.
I didn't. Because I wanted to see as far as if it pluralized. A lot of some stuff pluralizes for you off the fly. So I think it's in the models model. And I'll make one for grocery lot or grocery parking lot to make sure to see if it pluralizes for you. And I'm just writing these Rails commands. If you've done any tutorials, I'll explain it pretty well. Parking lot. Because a lot of times there's a lot of confusion within Rails going back and forth to plural to singular. But the idea is if you were to have multiple, it's when I make the migrations. Yeah, that was, it creates migrations for you. So you have grocery parking lots
Yeah,
and church parking lots. That's what it was. So I did do, this was singular, but it made it plural because you're going to have a whole table of grocery parking lots. So Rails does a lot of pluralizing and unpluralizing for you. I just had to figure out where it was. I haven't created a new project in a while, so it was a mystery until now where it was. So just what I was getting at is there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and when you start calling different variables, there's going to be a reason for you to start interpolating in different things. So to do classify, to take it from plural and switch it to an actual a consonantized, a capitalized letter, of capitalized. What am I trying to say? Object. It's good to know on hand. I think, yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, I'm not sure about any other. Dasher is a good one, but I also want to point out within this, you could see sometimes calculus. It's a subject in math. It's going to think sometimes that's going to be a plural, so that could be handled incorrectly. But I don't know all the details about it, but there is within the inflections model, you can have you can put ignored cases. So you can put words, if you have a word like calculus is going to be used in your project over and over again, you can make sure that word's not going to be chopped off.
That's quite interesting because I always thought that Rails has a list of words and how to pluralize them because there are special cases like person and people what Rails can handle.
Yeah, they do have a library of special cases. There's actually a story in itself. So Rails for zombies, and it's funny because I only know this because I now live in Orlando, and Code School is from Orlando. But this guy, Greg Pollock, who runs Code School, his first Rails contribution was because the word zombie, it wasn't pluralized properly. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Rails didn't know how to handle it, so he actually put a commit to pluralize zombies properly, and yeah, so that's why it's zombies. I'm not sure the details and what was. I wonder if he wrote a blog post on it. Yeah. Funny because I actually haven't seen him as of yet since I've actually been here. We haven't crossed paths, though I've been at his facility quite a few times. I think maybe he did a presentation on it. I haven't actually watched any of his presentations before. Oh, yeah, but yeah, I think I started a new thing on YouTube it's I'm catching. It's called Catch Up Conf, and
Hmm.
I'm just catching up on a lot of videos from conferences in the past to kind of get catch up to the speed of other Rubyists. And actually, not just Ruby. I'm doing some Ember ones and some JavaScript talks thrown in there. But yeah, I'll probably throw one of his in there to kind of hear his presentation. But yeah, what were we getting at? Oh, pluralization of Rails. So there are some words that they have set aside to make sure that it gets pluralized properly. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's a list somewhere, but I won't spend too much time trying to find that. But just going back to this, getting back into the library, I did want to point out. A really good use case would be you see how there's the snake case of Puni Puni.
Hmm.
Dasherize would be very useful for front end development. So if you wanted to call in, let's see if I can find the view. So if I knew I wanted to list my churches in an index, so let's say if I wanted this churches, I could, or let's say if I had multiple models, but I knew I wanted the div ID to actually be that model I'm looking at, I could just do like this isn't the right one, but model name, and but if I had the problem where the models were camel cased, and it's very popular within ID div tags in CSS to use dashes instead of underscores.
Hmm.
I think it's also true with IDs for JavaScript. I'm not too familiar with all that stuff, but I'm kind of still learning it. But if you wanted to make sure that if you had a camel case or a snake case rather for your model names, you wanted to dasherize, so that way every time you call dasher every time you call that ID into your page, because you wanted the model name for each ID. And if you're running, this is a bad example because it's an index page, but if this was like a form partial, it would make more sense.
Hmm.
So if you
Yeah.
wanted that form ID to show up, div class ID, you would just throw that in there, and that way it would handle that ID properly. So if you wanted to go into your JavaScript file, uh, and I know I'm kind of floating around through all this Rails code, and I've never actually explained a lot of Rails code, but just get the idea that these methods are available for you. So if I wanted that function to show up for the ID, then I can just throw in that same thing here. And I'm just butchering my code right now. I'm not going to save any of this. Uh, there's something not closed. It's a quotation. There you go. Yeah, it's stuff like that. It seems to be very useful, just inflections, very popular to use on the fly. One of the some of the practices that we have within my work is a lot of the views. I forgot what the terminology that was used, but within our views, it's all yeah, I don't remember what the term was, but basically the views holds all the data of how to present. Oh, the views are for presentation, and the backends for data. So we actually do a lot of within the standard translation library, the IATN, I think it
Hmm.
is. Yeah, I've never heard anything about this before. That's not it. But the standard translation library, you can look it up in the Rails documentation. We actually use all that, and we use a YAML file. It's an English translation file, which I don't think oh, here he goes. So basically, but our file's massive. So whenever I call hello, it's going to pull in hello world. So I'll just go like t dot. I think that's global. Well, t dot en dot hello. It's all going to make quotes. So we do a lot of this within our YAML file and or within our views, in addition to stuff like that dasherize ID. So that way we keep the code not repetitive, but we just throw in these these symbols all over the place. But yeah, that's getting away from what we had our task in hand, which is getting through the rest of this library. But yeah, I won't go through every single thing in here, but this is probably one of the easiest libraries that I have seen, which is why I still decided to go with it since it wasn't Ruby.
Yeah,
Pure.
but it's pretty useful.
Yeah, it's very useful. So
So
I
it
think,
is great for start.
yep. And it kind of helps me get like more of a best practice. I have another library I want to do next time.
Hmm.
But yeah, this is the Inflector library. It's good to have in the back of your mind if you work with Rails to know that you can do a lot of this stuff, um, like pluralization. Classify was a good one. Um, Safe constant size. Try to find a constant in the name specified in the argument string. So this is gives you a little more parameters to use to save constant size. So titleize is something else. I think it might be just cool. So yeah, if you want to app capitalize the first letter of each word, that's another thing you could do. It's within the Rails Inflector. I didn't know. I'm curious to know if that's in Ruby also. If I was like the man with a hat, titleize.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
looks like it's just a
doesn't.
Rails thing. Yeah, so that's something to note. Just in Rails, titleize.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, this is a standard English translation. Obviously, you don't have to just do English. You can actually have translations for. We have a Spanish translation library also for our application.
Hmm.
Obviously, in America, there's a lot of people who speak Spanish, so we have a need for that. And that is it. And there's the underscore library. So that's the library in a nutshell. Kind of this is basically the kind of structure I was trying to go for. Just kind of just go through the list, read a little bit, try a little bit in the console, and this is what reading Rails is all about. It's just reading it, getting accustomed to it, and then moving on. So I highly doubt I'll use every single thing in this in my project as I start cleaning it up and working through it. Um, but yeah, I definitely want to. I think I might even throw in some more Rails libraries because I think it's worth knowing. Because I think a lot of Rubyists come in the Ruby through Rails, so I think to better understand Rails is not a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's it. I think so. Some other Ruby libraries I think I might toy out doing is like the enumerable. The enumerable. Um, 2.1 is fine. But yeah, this is a huge library that is used everywhere, um, which we think. Yeah, I think I'm going to go through this next because there's a lot of things that I don't know that you could use that
Hmm.
will be very helpful. Some things also that I've used before but haven't used since because maybe I just haven't remembered. Like each slice I've used before for little practices. Never heard of each constant. Each cons, not sure what that is, but I know each with hash. I was actually trying to iterate a hash to do some email validation for emails and arrays this week. Hopefully, I'll write a blog post about that on more detail because that was a lot of work and there's a lot of information in itself about that. So I'll probably work on that blog post later today, but probably go through this next and then pick another library the following week. But just basically, also Ruby, I find it's got more information, but that could also be a bad thing because a lot of it sometimes doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, we'll just have at this. So this will be the next time we do this little practice will be in 2 weeks
Hmm.
time. So we'll do the book club and then do this. So if people want to jump on and join us, that's fine. If you want to watch the video after the fact. But again, this is my personal advancement in learning Ruby. Is doing these videos and having these clubs. So if you decide to join, you're more than welcome to. So it looks like the 24th will be the next time we do this. Just a note for the well grounded Ruby is. Last time we did 5 p.m. I'm actually doing it a lot later. Um, I'm just thinking out loud. I might have to even push that to Monday because it's actually my son's birthday, so I might have to do this on a Monday
Hmm.
and change it up. So I guess just keep in touch and follow the group, and I'll let you know if that date's gonna move because I actually won't. I don't think I'll be home that day, but I have to talk with the wife to find that out. But with that being said, yeah, rubynewbies.org. There was actually another a video I was going to mention that kind of got me inspired to learning Ruby, and kind of how simple it is to teach yourself. This guy, Matan Griffel, he does the 1 month Rails, but this video is particularly he did way before he started that company, um, on how he learned, and he did a lot of submersing himself within code. For one thing, listening to podcasts, which I did mention earlier that the Ruby Rogues was where I got a lot of these ideas of reading code. I highly recommend if you are able to listen to podcasts or whatnot, check them out. This is probably the most in-depth Ruby podcast that I know of that specifically focus on Ruby. So give them a listen. Um, that is it. I'll go ahead and stop the video, but yeah, keep in touch and let me know if you guys need any help or questions. I used to be widely available, but now with being at work all day, I am available through messaging, but I don't have much time to pair program other than these videos. So, but yeah, I can answer any questions. But I'll talk to you guys later.